Hello students, welcome to my channel Learning History Made Easy. In today's video, I will be continuing with the chapter-wise important question series. Today's video will be about chapter 5.1 Delhi Sultanate. Before going into the video, if anyone is seeing the channel for the first time or if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and share it with your friends, and also click the bell button to receive notifications whenever I upload new videos. So without wasting time, let us get into the video. Who were the first among the Muslims to invade India? Arabs. Name the famous book of Alberuni, Kitabul Hind. Who was the founder of the slave dynasty? Qutub Minarat. Who was the founder of the Khilji dynasty? Alauddin Khilji. In which year did the Second Battle of Tarain take place and between whom? It took place in 1192 CE and was fought between Muhammad Ghori and Prithviraj Chauhan. Who was the founder of the Tughalaq dynasty? Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. Who shifted the capital from Delhi to Devagiri? Muhammad Bin Tughlaq. Who commenced the construction of Qutub Minarat at Delhi? Qutbuddin Aibak. Name two historians of Tughlaq period, Ziauddin Barani and Ibn Battuta. Name two books of Amir Khusru, Qazianul Futu and Tarkishi Alai. Now let us see a long answer question. Explain the reforms of Alauddin Khilji. Now let us see how to answer this question. So when a question is asked about explain the reforms of Alauddin Khilji. So the question is reforms of Alauddin Khilji. Okay, so the main points. I will quickly go through the points. If you want detailed explanation, you can go to the chapter-wise videos. Each chapter topics will be explained in details there. Here, I will just quickly go through the points. So, regarding reforms of Alauddin Khilji, the first one is administrative reform. Okay, administrative reform. He was a strong and efficient ruler. So Alauddin Khilji was a very strong and efficient ruler, and the central government was strong. During Alauddin Khilji's rule, the central government was strong. There was a strong central government, and the highest authority of the state was the king. King was the highest authority of the state. King believed in the theory of divine right. So he believed in the theory of divine right. And he was considered as the shadow of God on earth. In order to prevent rebellion, the king took various measures. The king took various measures to prevent rebellion. Okay, different measures were taken to prevent rebellion, such as restrictions on matrimonial reliance among nobles, prohibiting secret meetings, prohibiting wine and gambling. So all these measures were taken to prevent rebellions. So these were some of the administrative reforms of Alauddin Khilji. Next, let us go to the military reforms. Considering the military reforms of Alauddin Khilji, he maintained a strong standing army. So he had a very strong standing army, and he introduced a system of branding of horses. So this is a very important point. He introduced a system of branding of horses. It was called as the Dhag system. And he also maintained a register of soldiers. And both these were done to prevent false musters and corrupt practices. To prevent corrupt practices, these things were done. And he started paying the salaries to soldiers in cash. Okay, salaries to soldiers were paid in cash, and he abolished the Jagir system. The officer in charge of the appointment of soldiers were Aris-e Mumalik. Aris-e Mumalik was the officer, and this officer was in charge of the appointment of soldiers. So these were the military reforms of Alauddin Khilji. So administrative reforms over, military reforms over. Next, let us go through the revenue reforms. Regarding the revenue reforms of Alauddin Khilji, he introduced scientific method of measurement of land. Scientific method of measurement of land was introduced by Alauddin Khilji. This was for the assessment of revenue. And heavy taxes were imposed on special categories of peoples like Sardars, Jagirdars, then the ulemas, etc. On all these people, heavy taxes were imposed. And jizya was a tax imposed on non-Muslims. Okay, it was imposed on non-Muslims. Jizya was imposed on non-Muslims. And salaries were increased. Salaries were increased in order to check bribery and corruption of the officials. So these were the revenue reforms, that is scientific method of measurement of land, heavy taxes on Sardars, Jagirdars and Ulemas, jizya on non-Muslims, and salaries were increased to check bribery and corruption of revenue officials. So these were the revenue reforms of, and one more thing was an officer, a special officer called as Mustaq Raj. This officer was appointed to collect revenue from the peasants. A special officer was appointed to collect revenue, and there was strict punishment imposed. Strict punishment were imposed to safeguard the peasants from corrupt revenue officers. Okay, it was to safeguard the peasants from the corrupt revenue officers. Strict punishments were imposed. So these were the revenue reforms of Alauddin Khilji. Now next one is the economic reforms. Economic reforms. Economic reforms, also called as the market regulation. Okay, economic reforms or market regulations of Alauddin Khilji. He introduced the market regulation to help the soldiers. That is, prices of all articles. Okay, all articles, that too of common use. These prices were fixed. Prices of all articles of common use were fixed, and the prices in the capital was applicable to all towns. Okay, the prices in the capital was applicable to all towns. There was special officers were appointed to regulate the market. There were special officers to regulate the market. Grains were stored in government granary. Grains were stored in government granaries. Whatever grains were there, stored in government granaries, and it was used for emergency. During time of emergency, these grains were used. And any trader or vendor who cheated in weights and measures, anyone who cheated in weights and measures, that is, strict punishment were given, that is, cutting of equal weight of flesh from his body. Equal weight of flesh from his body was cut. That was a punishment given to the people who cheated, or the traders who cheated in weights and measures. So these were the economic reforms or market regulations of Alauddin Khilji. But the last days of Alauddin Khilji, this you can write as a conclusion. Last days of Alauddin Khilji, it was unhappy, and he was poisoned by his trusted general Malik Kafur. Poisoned him, and Alauddin Khilji, he died in 1316 CE. So these were the reforms of Alauddin Khilji. So this is how you have to write the answer for the question. So let us just go through the answer once more. Before that, there is one more important one-mark question, that is, who is called as the parrot of India? That is Amir Khusru. That question I have just missed. So you have to learn that question also. Who is called as the parrot of India? Amir Khusru. Now explain the reforms of Alauddin Khilji. Reforms of Alauddin Khilji, administrative reforms. He was a strong and efficient ruler. The central government was strong, and he was the highest authority of the state. King believed in the theory of divine right and he considered himself as shadow of God on earth. In order to prevent rebellions, he took various measures such as restrictions of matrimonial relations among nobles and officers, prohibiting secret meetings, appointing spies, prohibiting wine and gambling, etc. Military reforms: he maintained a strong and huge standing army, introduced the system of branding horses, dag, and also maintained a register of soldiers to prevent false musters and corrupt practices. He started paying salaries in cash and abolished the Jagir system. R.E.C. Mumalik was in charge of the appointment of soldiers. Revenue reforms: he introduced scientific method of measurement of land for the assessment of land revenue. Heavy taxes were imposed on sardars, jagirdars and ulemas. Jizya was imposed on non-Muslims. The salaries were increased in order to check bribery and corruption among revenue officials. An officer called Mustakraj was appointed to collect revenue from the peasants. He imposed strict punishments to safeguard the peasants from the demands of corrupt revenue officers. Economic reforms or market regulation: he introduced the market regulation to help soldiers and to make ends meet. Prices of all articles of common use were fixed. Prices fixed in the capital was applicable to all towns. Special officers were appointed to regulate the market. Grains were stored in government granaries and it was used for emergencies. Any trader or vendor who cheated in weights and measures were punished with cutting of an equal weight of flesh from his body. The last days of Alauddin were unhappy and he was poisoned by his trusted general Malik Kafur, and Alauddin died in 1316 CE. So next let us see one more important long answer question, which is a repeated question. Critically examine the administrative experiments of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, or why is Muhammad bin Tughlaq called a mixture of opposites? Now let us see how we will answer this question. Why is Muhammad bin Tughlaq called as mixture of opposites, or we can say the administrative experiments of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Because of his experiments only he was called as a mixture of opposites. Now Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he was the son of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He was the son of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq and his actual name was Prince Jauna Khan. Okay, actual name was Prince Jauna Khan, and he ascended to the throne with the title Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay, he ascended to the throne with the title Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and he is known for his military and administrative experiments. Now regarding his experiments, the first experiment we are going to see is the increase of taxes in Doab area. Increase of taxes in Doab area. That is the first administrative experiment of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now Doab area, that is the area between Ganga and Yamuna, was very fertile. Area between Ganga and Yamuna. This area, Yamuna, this area was very fertile. The area was very fertile. And Muhammad bin Tughlaq decided to increase the tax in this area. Okay, he decided to increase the tax in this area. Although it was a practical decision, the tax hike was too steep. This increase in tax was too steep, and it was introduced at a time when there was lack of rain. Okay, the tax was increased at a time when there was lack of rain, and farmers became unable to pay the taxes. Farmers were unable to pay the taxes, and these farmers who were not able to pay the taxes were ruthlessly punished. This measure made him very unpopular. So this was the first experiment of Alauddin Khilji. He increased the tax, but it was a time when there was lack of rainfall. The second experiment was the transfer of capital. Transfer of capital. The Sultan decided to transfer the capital from Delhi to Devagiri. So he wanted to transfer the capital from Delhi to Devagiri. This was to safeguard from the Mongol invasion. And he built a capital city. He built a new city near Devagiri that was called as Daulatabad. Daulatabad, a new city was built. And he wanted to shift the entire population. Okay, Muhammad bin Tughlaq wanted to shift the entire population when he was shifting the capital from Delhi to Devagiri. And the reason for shifting the capital was very practical, but the method adopted by him became impractical. Okay, method adopted became impractical. That is, he wanted to shift the entire population. The entire population was asked to travel a distance of 1120 kilometers. They had to travel, and the journey was very tiresome, and they had to pass through dense forest, heavy rains, etc. And because of all these problems, when the people were traveling, this resulted in death and suffering of the people. Death and suffering of the people. And realizing his mistake, the Sultan, what he did, ordered the people to march back. Okay, he ordered them to march back to Delhi, and this caused more problems, more casualties and more problems, and this made him very unpopular, and this became the second experiment became a failure. Now, regarding the third experiment of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, it is called as the token currency system. Okay, Muhammad bin Tughlaq carried on experiments on coins and currency. That is, he wanted to save the precious metals like gold and silver. So in order to save gold and silver, he issued copper coins. Copper coins were issued, which are the same value of silver tanka. And minting of copper coins was not retained the monopoly of the government, not the monopoly of government. Minting the coins were not retained as the monopoly of the government. And the empire became flooded with thousands of counterfeit copper coins, because all started minting their own coins, because minting was not the monopoly of the government, and they started minting counterfeit copper coins, and people started paying the taxes with coins, and such coins lost their value. These copper coins lost their value. The Sultan, what he did, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he recalled the copper coins, and people were asked to exchange it for gold and silver coins. Recall the copper coins for gold and silver coins. He asked the people to give back the copper coins in exchange for gold and silver coins. With this, what happened was the royal treasury became empty. Okay, all the gold and silver coins were given to the people, and the royal treasury became empty. And this currency reform of Sultan also became a failure. So this reform also became a failure. So like this, 3 reforms of Alauddin Khilji became a failure. That is, administrative experiments became failure. And according to Dr. V.A. Smith, as a conclusion you can write, according to Dr. V.A. Smith, he says that Muhammad bin Tughlaq is a compound of contradictions. Okay, and he is also called as a mixture of opposites. Because of all these, he is called as a mixture of opposites. He was actually a learned scholar. He was very well educated. He was a learned scholar and excellent speaker, and he had good knowledge, but the policies, though well meant, they were not well planned. So like this, you can write a conclusion, and these were the administrative experiments of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and that is why he is called as a mixture of opposites. Now just let us go through the answer once more. Critically examine the administrative experiments of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, or why is Muhammad bin Tughlaq called as mixture of opposites. Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he was a son of Ghiyasuddin. His actual name was Prince Jauna Khan, and he ascended the throne with the title Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He is known for his military, economic and administrative experiments. Increase of tax in the Doab area, The area between the river Ganga and Yamuna was very fertile. Muhammad bin Tughlaq decided to increase the taxes in this area. Although it was a very practical decision, the tax hike was too steep. It was introduced at a time when lack of rainfall had already created much problems. The farmers who were unable to pay were ruthlessly punished. This measure of Muhammad bin Tughlaq became very unpopular. Transfer of capital. The Sultan decided to shift the capital from Delhi to Devagiri to safeguard it from Mongol invasion. He built a new city near Devagiri and named it as Daulatabad. Another reason for shifting the capital was proximity of Delhi to the border, and new capital was in the center of the empire. He wanted to shift the entire population. The reason for shifting of capital was very practical, but the method adopted was impractical. The entire population of Delhi was made to travel to Daulatabad. The journey was very tiresome and they had to pass through dense forest, heavy rains, diseases, etc. This resulted in death and suffering of the people. Realizing his mistake, Sultan ordered all the people to march back to Delhi, and this caused many more casualties. This incident made him unpopular. Token currency reform. Muhammad bin Tughlaq carried out experiments on coin and currency. He wanted to save precious metals like gold and silver. For this reason, copper coins were issued, which are the same value of silver tanka. Minting copper coins was not retained as monopoly of the government. The empire was flooded with thousands of counterfeit copper coins. People started paying taxes with such coins and coins lost their value. The Sultan recalled copper coins and people were asked to exchange them with silver and gold coins. The royal treasury became empty and the currency reform of the Sultan utterly failed. Dr. V.S. Smith says that Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a compound of contradictions. He was a learned scholar, an excellent speaker, and he possessed sound knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, etc. But his policies, though well meant, were ill planned and badly executed. This gave him the reputation of being a mixture of opposites. So, all these are the important questions regarding chapter 5.1. I hope you have understood these points very clearly. Please go through these question and answers again and again so that you are thorough with all the points. And also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Your likes and shares will be of a great encouragement for me to make more and more videos. So I hope to see you all soon in the coming video. Thank you for watching.